The Standing Committee on Ordinance to whom is referred paper number 387, series of 2016, having considered the same, make the following report. Be it ordained that the building moratorium imposed by paper number 451 of 2015 be extended for 6 months and expanded to include the central business district. Committee recommends that this paper be reported out favorably with the following amendment: that the moratorium be ended on June 30th, 2017, and that central business district properties be included. Councilor Spatafor for the committee.
On Councilor Spatafor's motion to receive the committee report, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Committee report is received. Councilor Spatafor for the committee.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, this was an output of the joint ordinance and planning meeting. This was unanimous vote by the planning board as well as tonight's ordinance meeting. This was extended, or this is being asked to be extended due to the 4 meetings that the team that is working on doing the surveys right now, as well as getting upgrades and information of the city. I believe they just started. They started a little bit late in the process, and given the holidays, they've asked for an extension of time. This will go till June, just because originally the paper was to the end of the year, meaning end of 17 is going to go to the June of 17, as well as it does include the central business district. Any questions? I believe the sponsor, Council Kenny, can answer them as well. But again, the support of both the planning board and the ordinance committee unanimously. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Spatafor. Councilor D'Angelo.
Thank you, Madam President. And I'm not necessarily against extending, but I am cognizant of the state law that indicates you do a moratorium, you do it for a reason, you do it to study. So I understand what Councilor Spatafor just indicated, that they need more time. I'm not sure why they need 6 months, and I'm not sure why we passed that. Perhaps Madam Clerk could give me the date that we passed it, but I'm not sure why we're just now getting around to doing this substantive study. And just for everybody's edification, I was on the planning board for, I think, 7.5 years, and I used to be the no vote pretty much all the time. A lot of the times I was on my own, but I did manage to get in. I probably voted to stop more of these than everybody here combined. I'm not trying to brag, but that will give you an indication. And when it came time, I find it interesting that you now want to include the downtown, because I was by myself voting against the largest apartment building that's going to go downtown. So I guess I'm curious, why are we now including the downtown, the sponsor, after you voted to put the largest apartment building downtown ever? The timing is interesting to me, number one. And then the other thing is, again, I may even support this, but I see several other papers here, and what I don't want to do is put up a sign. I mean, again, we just invited the biggest development of the downtown, and I was the only one against it, by the way, again, just to clarify. But with that said, I don't want to put up a sign to all developers saying, no, don't come to Malden. You know, we had a proposal not too long ago to go on the corner of Charles and Main that I couldn't attend that night, but I wrote a letter against, saying I thought the scale of that project was too much. But a nice example I'd use 2 nice examples. The project that happened out here on Florence Street, and then the reuse of the Masonic building. I voted for that because had we not done that redevelopment, that could have been raised and it could have been a much more dense project there. So I'm not anti-development. What I am for is development that's done carefully and that's done. So again, I'm probably going to support this, but I want to know what Councilor Kinnon will remind me of the exact language in the state law, but it's something like substantive planning objectives in the moratorium study that needs to be conducted. So why is it taking so long? What objectives are we going to get to that we wouldn't get to otherwise? And then why is the downtown going to be included? Thank you.
Can I just have a point of information before Councilman Kennedy takes over?
Madam President.
Councilor Smith.
I was just reluctant to not say what is not included in that. That is the, I believe, RIO. It is the RIO for Rose Quarry. And it's there's two RIOs. There's RIO, it's just RIO, RIOB, which is this area. It is the Rose Quarry, and it's HDIP. Those are the three areas, technically four, that are not included inside this this moratorium. Thank you, Madam President.
Oh, that are not?
Yes,
So they would be excluded?
yes.
Okay, because then I guess I'm a little confused, because I thought there were some exclusions to the moratorium that we had passed. So this is now extending the exclusions.
Councilor D'Angelo, and Councilor Maria, I'm going to just skip over.
Yes,
some
yes,
of the-
I
Just
just
answer
waiting
this
for clarity.
question, and then I'll come right back to you.
Sure.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam President.
Hopefully you'll clarify this for all of us so that we.
I hope it is clarified. We'll find out. It is the exact same moratorium. The exact same moratorium, except now included is the central business district. Everything else is the same. We excluded the RIOs and whatever technical term we call for Rose Quarry, because we've already approved development of that whole property down there at one point. But again, it's the exact same. The only additional inclusion in the moratorium is central business district. Because before we take off on that piece, or not, that is the area that has the most potential for development. And the questions to Councilor D'Angelo's second question, the questions which are most substantial, I'll wait because he needs to understand.
Yeah, thank you. That was appropriate.
The questions which are most substantial in this study are: how should we develop the property? What should be the optimal way to develop the property that we have left that is developable to maximize our intake and minimize the out that we have, particularly on schools and things like that. Why it's taken so long, and I think most of you do understand this, because I think Councilor D'Angelo may have missed the meeting, due to business. But the funding for this was through Community Block Development Grant. That money did not become available to the city until August. We could not start in August. We weren't even in session to explain anything to anybody. I called them in August and set up a meeting first for September. Since September, they have been going forward, collecting data, meeting with different entities. We will be having a meeting next week at 5:30 p.m. for the committee of the City Council, and everybody is invited, but they need to do some significant study, which is going to answer these optimal things, and do a full survey, develop a survey, do a full survey, and do 4 public meetings across the city to gather more information from the people. Now, I will remind everybody, when the planning board initially, this was brought to the planning board initially, in 2015, it failed. It failed the second time, and then it passed the ballot. 68% of the voters voted for it, and then, even then, the planning board voted 6-3 at that time for it. So they didn't vote unanimously. They have now voted unanimously to extend this with the inclusion because they feel as though we need this information for the planning that they are doing under master planning as well. Thank you.
And Councilor Di Maria, Councilor D'Angelo, if you could just brief because Councilor Di Maria is waiting.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're yielding to Councilor Di Maria?
I'm sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry, he's yielding to you. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Madam President. So in ordinance, I was a little bit late tonight. I did vote for this. However, what I would like to go on record in saying is that we really need to caution that there is no other community around us that has a moratorium. We've projected a 3.24% growth in our total revenues. We're only allowed to collect 2.5. One would think that the balance of that would come from new construction. The longer we extend this moratorium, the less revenue we're getting in. So, you know, I did try an ordinance to maybe say 3 months. I understand there's obstacles that have, you know, held the progress back to this, but I just want to caution that, you know, every time we extend a moratorium, we're losing city revenue. So, thank you.
Councilor Matheson, then Councilor Cannon, then Councilor Beck.
Thank you. I think that the work that this moratorium was formed to accomplish is extremely important to this city, and I'd like to give them additional time if that's what they've requested. I don't think 6 months is unreasonable. And to Councilor Di Maria, we're not limited to only collecting 2.5% more revenue year over year. That's the limit on how much we can raise property taxes. So kind of a fundamental thing that you need to understand. Thank you.
Councilor Cannon.
Yes, I would just caution, one of the reasons is that we put this moratorium in place is because we don't understand whether or not the revenue that we are taking in is actually enough to offset the expenses that we are taking on. What we do know in this community is the following. In the last 25 years, the city of Malden has grown its population by over 15%. It has increased its units by over 4,000. During that time, the Malden Fire Department has decreased its employees by about 34. The Malden Police Department in that same time has not been able to grow and has actually shrunk by 4. The Malden School Department tells us every year they need more money. And we do know through the beginning of this study that apartments bring, on average in the city, somewhere between 13 and 15% of the apartment units will have children in them. And since it cost us $13,600 per child, it may very well be that we cannot support all our infrastructure with these apartments being added. To go forward without understanding that number, it's great if the revenue comes in at, you know, 500,000, but if you're losing 600,000, which we don't know either way, then it was a mistake. This stops mistakes. As some of you in the audience and out in TV land may remember, when this was first brought up, we had a number of people telling us that if we did this, the sky would fall and Malden's property values would decline and nobody would want to develop here. And in fact, the opposite has happened. Because when you limit supply and you have high demand, prices go up. So this is not necessarily a bad thing, and 6 months, like the first moratorium, won't harm anything. Thank you.
Councilor Kinnon. Councilor D'Angelo for last time.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Councilor Kennan, for your clarification on a couple of these things. Again, I agreed with 68% of the voters and did vote to support the original moratorium. So to me, the question is about this extension. So in regards to the timing, I think I'm generally okay with that. One thing I will ask, and I'll ask the clerk, and maybe we'll even need the solicitor or any other counselor. So we had recently passed a new ordinance that gave the council authority. We took it back from the planning board essentially, right? Oh, we ended up leaving that? Okay, all right, because I was concerned that we would create a little bit of a loophole here if we were, because we go out of session on June 30th, and then it could be 2 months where, development, if the moratorium does end, that development, they could be filing permits and things like that. That was my concern, but that's moot, you're saying, okay. And then one other question, particularly, Councilor Kinnan, and then if I might reserve my time, just one quick question I have, and then I'd like to just conclude. So within the zone, how many new parcels and/or area will be added as a result of adding the central business district? Do you have a sense of that? Can you give us a...
We didn't do a count, Councilor.
But is it a big block? Is it like,
It is substantial. It would include, for instance, all of that Charles Street area on the other side of Exchange Street, going all the way down to where the new building is going up, which is right on the edge on Eastern Ave / Route 60. I don't know how many I don't think there are many developable lots between where the current Charles Street is and the others without substantial demolition and all of that happening, and nobody's come forward to develop any of that. So, thank you.
Okay, so no, and that's helpful too, because I saw it, I'm going to support it knowing that, or hoping that rather, and trying to convey, and I hope to convey this to the person doing the study, is that I think we need to understand the implications of that development, because there really are not that many parcels left, and we got to be, that would be impacted with these large multi-families. And so to me, we've got to be very choosy with the way those parcels are handled. So with that, I'll support the paper. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no lights. No, to amend. Yeah, to amend. We haven't gotten to the amendment, I know. On Council Spatafora's motion to amend in accordance with the committee report, the clerk will call the roll. Oh, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Unanimous. Okay. On Councilor Spatafora's motion to enroll as amended, all those, no, clerk will. Good. Yeah,
Councilor
call the roll, please.
Anderson.
Yes.
Crowe.
Yes.
Condon.
Yes.
D'Angelo.
Yes.
DiMaria. Kinnan.
Yes.
Matheson.
Yes.
O'Malley. Sika. Spatafora. Murphy.
Yes. On Councilor Spatafora's motion to suspend docket rules for the purpose of ordaining. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? On the rules are suspended. On Councilor Spatafora's motion to ordain, the clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson.
Yes.
Crowe.
Yes.
Condon. D'Angelo.
Yes.
DiMaria. Kinnan.
Yes.
Matheson.
Yes.
O'Malley. Sika. Spatafora. Murphy.
Yes. The ordinance is ordained.